What's good, guys? This is Vahography. I'm Vahagan, your rock and roll photographer. I had a wedding client come in to see me. They were interested in my services. So they came, we sat down, lovely couple. So they sit down. I proceed to talk about, my photography. I showed them some sample images and everything was going great. And they seemed to love my work. The young lady was really loving my work. The fiance, on the other hand, one of those guys where, whatever you show him, you can show him the Mona Lisa and you can tell him you painted the Mona Lisa and he would just go, that type of guy. We all had them in this business. If you've been doing this long enough, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, they come in, they sit down. I'm showing him sample images. It's going great. And he asked me, and I thought he was joking. He asked me, well, what type of cameras do you use, sir? And I didn't really think much of it. I'm thinking he's just joking and I'm laughing it off. I go, Polaroid, He goes, no, I'm serious. I'm into photography too. And I'm using his words here. I do photography on the side and I've been a photographer for 20 plus years, he tells me. Oh, that's great. Well, I'm flattered that you came and are interested in my services. When photographers come in, and in the past, I've shot many photographers' weddings, videographers' weddings, photographers' weddings, friends of mine that asked me to shoot their wedding. It's just an honor and a privilege for others in the market, in my line of work, to ask me because they like my work. They want me to capture that day for them. They like my style and my personality. So it's flattering. And, I've done this before. But this couple, I do not know. So they come in and he tells me, oh, I'm a photographer. And this and that. I go, that's great. What type of photography do you do? Oh, this and that. I go, okay, this and that. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, he goes, well, I have the Canon camera. I go, oh, you use Canon, huh? I go, that's nice. Great cameras. Yeah, top of the line Canon camera. And then he asked me, what type of cameras do you use? Well, sir, and at this point, he told me he's a photographer and, now I know he's serious. I go, I use Nikon, sir. I use Nikon. Nikon, huh? People still use Nikon? That's what he tells me. People still use Nikon. I see. Well, do you own Canon cameras? So I go, yeah, I shoot Nikon primarily, but I'm not biased. But I shoot Nikon for my wedding photography work. He stays silent for a little bit and he goes, well, how many megapixels are your cameras? Primarily, I like to use the Nikon Z6 mirrorless camera and a D4. Sometimes I'll mix in the D800 and we'll see how it goes, this and that. Well, he goes, that's not enough megapixels for what I'm looking for. I go, really? Well, what are you looking for? Well, when my brother got married, he continues to tell me, the photographer at the wedding was using a 5DSR. I'm beginning to think to myself, 5DSR? Isn't that a 50 plus megapixel DSLR? Not primarily used for weddings, right? I go, that's great. That's a high megapixel camera. How do your files turn out? He goes, oh, very nice. Then he continues to tell me the Z6 and the D4 are not enough megapixels for his wedding. So I go, sir, I've been doing this for years and I haven't had one complaint about detail and sharpness in the images that I produce. And, the style of weddings that I do, you're really not going to use billboards. You're not doing a commercial campaign. You're not going to blow it up wall size. And if you are, even the D4 files, you could print 20 by 30. I've printed D4 files. I've printed 30 by 40 even. Not a big deal. Of course, I'd like to have more megapixels sometimes, but it's not a real deal breaker. I continue to tell him, look, my whole thing is capturing the moments. Capturing the moments, making sure the image is sharp, making sure the lighting is correct most of the time, and just capturing the moments, adding my style portraiture in the mix. You'll be very happy. Doesn't really matter if I'm using Canon, Sony, or Nikon. Well, to me, it matters. And so, I said, you know what? Look, I go. And then at this point, I begin to question his photography. I ask him, well, what do you shoot? I would like to know what you shoot. You're a photographer, right? Yeah, well, I have all the 2.8 lenses. The 2.8 lenses, and those are professional lenses. I hope you don't have any f4s, he tells me. Actually, I do. I love the f4 lenses. Oh, really? He goes, well, that's not real professional on your part. Do you like my images? Do you think my images are not professional? What's your definition of professional? I want to know your definition. There are plenty of f4 lenses that are professional. You're telling me the 600 f4 used by many wildlife and sports photographers is not professional? You telling me the 500 f4 is not professional? Some 7200 f4 lenses, those are not what do you classify as professional? What's your definition of professional? And in the back of my mind, I know that I have all pro glass and I have nothing to worry about. I'm very confident about my gear that I use. If he wants to show up there in the 200 f2, then what's he gonna say? I mean, and then I ask him, what type of photography do you do that you think that f4 lenses are not good enough? I do a lot of bird photography and I do some sports. I go, really? And you don't own an f4 lens? Nope. He goes, all my lenses are 2.8s. 2.8s. I'm beginning to think, okay, so what do you have? Like, do you have a 400 2.8? Do you have a 300 2.8? If all your lenses are 2.8s, you have I'm assuming you have a 300 millimeter 2.8. No, I'm currently using a 24-70 2.8. I love that lens. So he begins to gloat about his 85 millimeter lens. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, that 1.2, right? The 1.2 version 2 with the L stripe, the red stripe. He goes, no, I think that the lens is gold. It has a gold stripe. So he's talking about not even an L lens here. And he's talking about how his 24-70 lens is amazing, and yet he does wildlife. Something doesn't add up here. You're shooting birds with a 24-70 lens. Okay, so at this point, I'm thinking this guy is full of what, and he's just here to just waste my time. And then he begins to look at the album, and he goes, well, do you do any editing to these images? I go, what do you mean by editing? He goes, well, my brother's photographer's images begin to explain to me how he likes the images to have some certain type of mood, and that's delivered by the photographer, and that it doesn't really matter the time of day we're shooting. You could work your magic and you could set that mood. Well, yeah. So then it was time to show him some pricing, right? Oh, what do you charge? Show him the pricing. He goes, well, where's your photography price list? This is the photography price list. This is not including video? You mean to tell me you charge this much just for photography? Yeah, it's for photography. My services. My time, my vision, my services. Wow. He goes, I don't remember it being that much. You don't remember what being that much? Have we worked in the past? Do you know what my pricing is, sir? And he goes, well, no, but don't you guys all charge the same? And let me tell you, at this time, the fiance was like, oh man, am I really marrying this guy? I know she was pretty annoyed at the situation, but we're talking about photography here. I can imagine how he is buying the ring or dealing with the florist. But I go, no, sir, this is just for photography, and I use Nikons. All right, I use Nikon cameras. He didn't say anything, But it kind of ticked him off that I was a little bit direct at the end of this meeting, because I've pretty much had enough. He's here, big shot wannabe, I guess, photographer, and critiquing my work and telling me how my work is just plain and there's nothing special, and his 24-70 lens does amazing wildlife and birding photography. So I pretty much had enough. So he goes, "I'll be honest with you, man. Even if your pricing was what I was looking for, I don't like the fact that you use Nikons. I think, in my opinion," and he tells me word for word, "I think Nikon cameras are not as professional as Canon cameras." I'm like, what rock did this guy crawl out from? Like, honestly, what the seriously? I'm beginning to get like, I'm just kind of laughing, not laughing, but I'm like, I have a smirk on my face and I'm just nodding. Well, I appreciate your opinion. Yeah, I think that Nikon cameras are, for hobbyists and enthusiasts and real professionals don't use Nikon anymore. I thought I'd share that with you guys. I thought it was comical. I've been doing this for a long time, and that meeting was one for the record books. There's many different clients in wedding photography, and I've met with thousands, and they each have their own little story, but this one stood out to me because he touched the subject that I know a lot about, and that's cameras and lenses and Nikon. I mean, I study this stuff. I love this stuff. I live, breathe, and eat cameras and lenses. This is what I do. So for this guy to come in and kind of like, act all tough and tell me that, you're not really that professional and you charge too much and this and that. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, he goes, well, the Z6 doesn't have enough megapixels. And it seemed like this guy did his homework and he knew about the megapixels on a D4 and Z6. And I go, listen, I have a D800. If you want, I can bring my D850 as well. I see a portrait, nice. You want all the detail, maybe a landscape portrait, bride and groom shot where you want all the detail, nice park setting, this and that. But reception, dancing, and this, that, do you really need 45 megapixels? I think it's just overkill, right? So if you want, I can bring my D850. Would that make you happy? I just think Nikon is not, it's not what I'm looking for. Well, towards the end, I tell him, you know what, why don't you go and hire your brother's photographer? Why don't you hire your brother's guy if you love his photography so much? What are you doing here? You're wasting our time, You were here wasting my time telling me how Nikon sucks. And this is coming from a wedding client. Can you imagine what kind of misinformation this guy's been reading? I mean, I know tons of photographers awesome, amazing wedding photographers that use Nikon. You tell Jerry Guiones that Nikon is for amateurs? Really? Jerry Guiones, one of the top wedding photographers? Cliff Montner? The list goes on and on. You tell them that Nikon is no good for weddings. I mean, we're talking about wedding photography. If somebody came in and told me about their ad campaign where, it's Rolex and you need to, photograph the watches and when we want the utmost quality and this and that's different. Then we go medium format route. But this is wedding photography. This is wedding photography. This is not a movie production. This is not anything like that. And the icing on the cake was where he said, does this price include the video? All right, guys, never shoot birds in flight with a 24-70. I mean, you can, but I don't know how good or how close that picture will be. And make sure you don't own an f4 lens. According to this guy, those lenses suck and they're not professional and those are just for kids. Anyway, we'll talk to you guys later. I thought it was funny to me. That's why I thought I'd share this little story with you guys. Come across all types of clients in wedding photographies, and most of them are awesome. A majority of my clients are great. They're fun and they're just fun to work with. But this dude was a jackass. Anyway, all right, guys, quick reminder. We got great things coming on Vahography. We got more Vahography talks on the way, special surprises you don't want to miss. So go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification. You'll be notified when those videos go up. I want to thank you for watching. This is Vahography. I'm Vahagan, your rock and roll photographer. And we will see you on the next video. Rock and roll. Oh.